Good morning, everyone. Suzanne Taylor King here for another Friday live of Unlock Your Way with STK. And today we are here with Aaron Weese, who I picked up on LinkedIn. He's a marketing consultant, a LinkedIn teacher, coach, and
Strategist, coach.
strategist. And we're going to really get into it today because we've never actually had a conversation before. This is the very first time we're getting to know each other live right in front of you. And I do this pretty routinely. And I absolutely love when I find somebody who has a unique spin on things. And Aaron, you totally bring that to the table. So welcome.
Thank you, thank you. It's interesting to have someone say that. I bring an interesting perspective to the table. Sometimes when you're living an
Yeah.
experience, lived experience doesn't seem very interesting to you.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of times it could be excitement, stress, anxiety inducing, but
Yeah.
so it's kind of interesting to hear, how someone kind of defines, I guess your
Yeah.
journey. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
I think
definitely a journey.
Well, I think it stands out, right? I
Hmm.
think, some of the things that you say about marketing and LinkedIn, I think it offers a really unique perspective in this landscape of how social media is right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
So, what's your current what's your current thinking on social media, LinkedIn in particular?
Well, I for lack of and this kind of goes, I'm drawing from my experience the last couple of years, but definitely the last few years of my life have been paradigm shifting. And, a little background on that. Basically, around June of 2023, my mother-in-law, like, she lived 4 hours away from us, and people started, she's acting a little funny. And she came to visit us, and we're like, she's acting really weird. She's really just, you know, she was a very stern, direct person, kind of critical, and she was like, that was like just exponentially, multiplied. And then we got a call finally in August saying something really is wrong. So we went down and picked her up, and she turns out she had dementia.
Wow.
So fast forward through the next year, my wife and I basically had to step away from our careers to care for her full time with dementia. And I think in the grieving and the healing and the kind of the rebirth process from that, I feel like social media, we waste a lot of time dancing around what we really want to say.
Yeah.
Um, and also too, I was kind of, directly before this experience with my mother-in-law, stuff like that, I was in the cannabis industry, and I was kind of starting to kind of transition a little back out of it because my heart's always been with helping small businesses and solopreneurs and even just individual people build their own personal brand. And
Hmm.
one of the things I saw about cannabis is, everybody was just about looking cool. Like,
Yeah.
we wanted to be with the right people, be at the right parties. And, I had a blast while I was doing it, but I realized, I'm like, I'm spending a lot of time, flinging myself across the sky in a steel tube to, go to the next launch party, or go to this, go to that, when, what is that really producing?
Yeah.
So I think kind of what the point of that is, I'm getting to, kind of at the point I'm at now with life and social media is, you know, we need to say what we're just going to need to say what we want to say. I mean, a lot of people dance around it. You have this insane sense of confirmation bias. Okay,
Yes.
like you'll have someone post this hot take, and it's really this crazy take. You're like kind of going, whoa, 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 what are they saying here? And you have 100 comments like, couldn't agree more. You said it, and I'm like, do all these people really agree with that? And you kind of question, like, are they just kind of going along with the crowd to not
Yeah.
ruffle the herd, or are they really being true to their personal brand and what they want to say? So I think really one of the things we're dealing with now, and it could go either way with it, with the expansion of AI, is authenticity.
Right.
Are we really being authentic with ourselves and being authentic with others?
Yeah.
Um, and there's ways to be authentic and still be kind. You can deploy kind candor. You can be critical of people and still be very kind about it. And I think a lot of us, I really feel like social media, and I'm trying not to go all the way down my whole professor diatribe here, But I feel like social media should really be called unsocial media
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's turned us into these just like regimented beings that like, oh, you say good thing, I agree with good thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
But
this is so true because, now that AI comments and, you know, AI, more people are posting because they're creating
hmm
content. And I love AI. I love to create
hmm
content with AI uh, in
yeah,
my own voice. And, but there's this feeling that
hmm
whatever I post, it could be way to the left, way to the right on a topic, and I'm going to get 30, 40, 50 people that agree, just like you said.
hmm
Why are they
yeah,
agreeing? Why are they commenting? And I think, why am I doing it is the bigger question. And
hmm
when you really think about where your clients come from, and this goes
hmm
to all the listeners, any of my followers, any of your followers, when you really sit down and think about
yeah,
where your clients come from, unless you're spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads, where are your clients
hmm
coming from? And they're coming from being in the room with you, having an actual conversation with you, especially
hmm
if your product or service is over $1,000.
oh yeah, of course. I mean, the higher your entry price of your product is, of course, the sales
Right,
funnel is going to generally get a little longer and stuff like that.
right.
So yeah, exactly. But I think too with AI, the AI's natural inclination is to be very polite, very complimentary, very supportive. Um, and I use AI very extensively in my work. And I think AI is an amazing thing. I think it's going to change the world if
Mhm.
we use it right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, of course, on LinkedIn, you have some of these people who maybe have watched too many episodes of the Terminator, read the Skynet comic book series, but they are calling out AI use and they're trying to really, really beat down AI use, and a lot of it is on very, very surface level reasoning, like, oh, you
Mhm.
have EM dashes in your posts, or I could see the writing patterns, and I'm like, well, I'll tell you right now, I used the crap out of EM dashes in grad school, and ChatGPT wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
My wife is a classically trained literature and Shakespeare professor, and a lot of times she has a hard time telling if something's written by a decent AI model.
Mhm.
So how do you have Joe in the sales department all of a sudden is a rhetoric expert, for lack of
Well,
a better term?
do you think that comes from lack of knowing how to use it, and lack of knowing how to use it so that it actually sounds like you?
That's probably the case in a lot of scenarios there, but I think the big thing, and this is what drives a lot of people's actions. I mean, it's a no brainer. Is the F word, fear.
Yeah, fear.
Okay, we're afraid of what we don't know. And I was having a conversation with a consulting client. We're working on his LinkedIn, and I'm solidly in the middle of Gen X, and so is my client.
Mhm.
And I go, well, have you used spell check before? He's like, oh yeah, I use spell check all the time. Been using it for 30 years. Yeah, that's AI. Or do you remember Clippy from Microsoft Word back in the day? Remember
Yeah, yeah.
Windows 98 Clippy? Clippy's
Yep.
AI. Okay, so we want to talk about some slippery slopes here or whatever, but
Mhm.
you know everybody's used AI, and I feel like I don't want to dog the people that are kind of coming down on AI because I understand the reasoning is fear. Because if you look at most of these people that are coming down on AI, they're your creatives, and they're the ones that see their they're kind of their career dissipation light blinking really quickly back here,
Yeah.
and maybe they're kind of at a stuck point saying, which direction do I go with this?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel like the ones that are still doing that might be a little late to the game because there's a lot of people riding the AI train and it's left the station. And anybody that's still really doing that is just shaking their fist at the clouds that left, the trains left them.
Yeah, I remember about a year ago, I learned how to do AI photos, and they've gotten better and better and better, and I've gotten better at doing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
posted some of my results, not only my
Mm-hmm.
photos, but a couple clients in an AI
Mm-hmm.
group I'm in. And this is
Mm-hmm.
an AI group. This is an
Yeah.
AI group on Facebook that's huge that I am actively posting in and learning from the group leader. And
Mm-hmm.
I posted all these photos, and there was all these wonderful comments. And then there was one comment
Mm-hmm.
and criticizing every photo. Oh, this is wrong. 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 And
Mm-hmm.
it had to have taken more than 20 minutes to
Mm-hmm.
invest the time into blowing up my images and saying that
Mm-hmm.
the hook on the doorknob was wrong and this was wrong and that was wrong. And
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, let me see what that person does for a living.
Mm-hmm.
They're a photographer. And I
Mm.
thought, why are you in an AI group if you're going to criticize and be fearful of it? And that's when I started educating writers and photographers about it's not going to take away from your business if you learn how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to
Exactly.
add a revenue stream. It's going to add to your skill set, not take away from. And I love that perspective of yours. When it comes to marketing, it's going to add to your marketing abilities. It's not going to get rid of marketing agencies or consultants,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
those people who don't embrace it and at least learn it are going to
Mm-hmm.
be left behind. Imagine if you or I were still carrying around, remember when the cell phone, or wasn't even a cell phone, what was it? Satellite phone, the giant thing that we used to carry around in our car that was
The
bigger than
bag
a
phone.
yes. Imagine if we were still showing up carrying one of those or a beeper. How about a beeper, a
Mm-hmm.
pager? That was super
Ooh.
hot in the 80s.
Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I have learned, throughout life is no one is more determined that they're right than someone trying to make a point.
Yes.
Okay. And a perfect example this morning, I ended up having to block someone about 40 minutes ago this morning because I had a post, showing off one of my recent tattoos.
Mhm.
And, you see my post. I have it, I'll post some and have a little marketing lesson. Well, this guy straight up said, is that what you call a good tattoo? If so, you need a new artist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at first I responded I'm like, well, that's kind of a shitty thing to say. I mean, I think maybe we need to talk about how you communicate with people. And then he
Mm,
comes in with the gaslight, oh, I'm sorry, I hit a nerve guy. And, what was his whole point of that comment? Okay.
yeah.
There couldn't have been any productive meaning. And I looked at this person's profile. Okay. Um, I probably should send him some information on male pattern baldness. Um, but I mean, hey, I'm 50 and I still have just about all my hair. Um, but you look at some people's comments and you kind of go, well,
Mhm.
what's the point of that? Are they just
Right.
trying to be an asshole? Or are they just trying to, what, there's no point to it other than just to be a big jerk.
Yes. Yes. And
So,
I
you
I
know,
I think that's how you know you've made it. Honestly, when you're able to be on social media and actually receive criticism or get nasty comments,
hmm
that's how you know you're doing a good job. Like, I think that should be the goal. Uh, the goal should be to strike a nerve or not upset. I hate to use that term, but if I am standing in my true authenticity and I am provoking thought, some of
Mm-hmm.
those thoughts are going to be negative,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfectly fine. And but there, and the thing is there, and I always try to look at it this way too, is a lot of people in society nowadays are hurting.
Yes.
We have a mental health crisis in this country.
Mhm.
Um, and so you kind of got to look at it with that perspective.
Yes.
Um, and I actually, believe it or not, I learned a lot of the skills that I use for engagement on LinkedIn from when I was, I was late to the game to get my college degree. I got my bachelor's at 43, master's at 40, or bachelor's at 41, master's at 43. Immediately got hired on SNHU to teach. I've been teaching there for 6 years now at 49.
Mhm.
So I was kind of late in getting my degree. But one thing I really learned was, I was taking online courses, of course. And we had those threaded discussion boards. If you ever taken
Yeah.
an online class, you have these. Okay, and I'll tell you, 95% of students that take online courses phone it in for those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I can't tell you how many. I still have not figured out how you can write a 5-paragraph response just saying "great post."
I,
It's.
I don't know. I've been in those courses, and yeah, that's a skill in
Well,
itself.
yeah, exactly. So I try to kind of take that. I kind of try to take that skill and kind of
Mhm.
direct it the right direction. And I go, and this is exactly how I, kind of the place I grade from is, does this can further the conversation in a productive manner?
Mhm.
And I think everybody that posts or replies should maybe kind of look at things with that eye and say, okay,
Yeah.
is this going to further the conversation, or what I call a brick wall post? Okay, those, oh, great, great post. I agree. That's a brick wall. Okay, what are you going to respond to? Thanks. Okay, so I tell my students and also my consulting clients to do one of three things when you respond. Okay, either agree and add. Okay, don't just agree and add. Okay, and if you have sources or can show receipts, even better.
Yep.
Disagree why and make your point in a kind manner with proof, or ask a probing question. One of three
Mhm.
things, okay? And those can almost guarantee engagement in a LinkedIn post or online class or anything,
Yeah.
okay? Because it almost obligates the person to respond. And a lot of times when I respond like that or reply with a probing question or something like that, and I get just dead noise from them, I go, okay, they're posting for getting for posterity. They're not necessarily interested in the engagement. Now,
Mhm.
you have some of these gurus that they'll get 700-800 comments on a post. I get it. You're not going to respond to my comment necessarily every time. That's cool.
Right.
But I do see people with like 3 to 5 to 7 or well under 10 comments, not even taking the time to respond to a meaningful reply to their post.
Yeah.
So, either their strategy on LinkedIn isn't tight, their engagement strategy, or they're just posting for posterity.
Well, I think
So,
that's a huge misconception about social media in general. Um,
mhm,
and there's a couple people that I follow, that have 300,000, 600,000 followers on LinkedIn. So every
yeah,
post they make, 1,000, 2,000 comments. And, that,
yeah,
like you said, that would be impossible to engage with all of those people. But I
yeah,
noticed that most of those comments are just comments for comments' sake. It's just to be noticed on that person's
hmm,
post. Like, who's going to be the
absolutely,
first to comment and get 1,000 views of their comment? So they try to be lengthy, they try to be smart, they're using AI to do it because all the
hmm,
comments kind of read the same. I'm not that
hmm,
popular that happens to me. I get pretty genuine comments. And
yeah,
I think what's interesting is two of those people who I've been following
hmm,
for years have
hmm,
decided that they don't want to interact in the comments any longer. They're still going to post on LinkedIn,
hmm,
and they're still going to share value, but they want to have
hmm,
They want to take the conversation into a more private space that can't be infiltrated with automations and bots and algorithms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of takes to another point where there is a large rise in small communities nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
With my small business clients, the own your marketing concept. I try to take, with small businesses, when I talk about own your marketing, I try to take their foundation off of social media, because no, you can't control social media. You shouldn't put your business in the hands of it.
Right.
So I tell, these, and a lot of companies love you. Oh, you should, social media is a valuable tool. You can't just not use it. I'm not saying not use social media. I'm saying use the crap out of it. Okay. But use it smartly and not just post and try to get your customers from social media. You always want to try to get them into a funnel that you own.
Yeah.
So I am seeing a rise in interest in small owned communities. The dive shop, I have a local dive shop that's a client that we built out actually the owner, there's a husband and wife that own the shop, great people. And the wife was like, I really want to build a dive community around here, because we have a quarry that about 45 minutes out. It's a great scuba park. Okay, it's a great place. And she's like, I want to be able, people to be able to find a dive buddy when they want to go diving at the quarry, or if they want to go out to North Carolina or something. So she was trying to do this whole like phone tree list thing and stuff like that. And when we started talking about redesigning their website and kind of pulling their marketing, to ownership, I said, it would not be a hard lift to build an online community that's hosted and based on your website that you own. And we did that. I'm not saying it's got thousands upon thousands of members, but it's got a healthy number of members. I think we're about to 60 or 70 now of local divers that just want to interact with other divers, and it's completely off of social media. So I think, especially as social media starts to kind of do what social media does, like I've noticed some changes in LinkedIn lately, where they're really trying to push me to boost my posts and pay to get exposure for my posts.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I'm not a big fan of that, because it took me years to build my following. I don't want to have to pay to have my following see my messages. So there is a large rise in online communities. But also too, some of those, like just the circular comments like that. A lot of some of these, these bigger influencers, a lot of that's engagement pods on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and what do you say when somebody asks about that? I mean, I have my standard response. I have a group on WhatsApp of my clients, of my community members, and we do share our LinkedIn, posts. Not everyone. I think there's 30 some people in that thread on WhatsApp. And we do share our LinkedIn posts, 5, 6, maybe 10 of us. And we're not asking each other for comments per se. It's like, hey, read my post. If it resonates with you, it would be helpful to have my tribe comment on it. I think the mistake comes in is when you're obligated. Oh, there's 30 people in this group. You have to make 30 comments every day. Oh my gosh, that sounds like Chinese torture to me. Like, I don't want to do that.
I tell people, like, because like the example you gave, I mean, you have your tribe, you have your community. There's a purpose to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Engagement pods are simply to boost engagement. Now, here's the thing about engagement pods is it's like a snake eating his own tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going anywhere, because you have, like, the algorithm's going to see these same 30 people are liking your post. So it's only going to start, and then it's going to be train the algorithm to only serve up to those people and maybe a handful of extras. So, and are those people really your audience? Okay. Because I'll tell you, there's a number of pods out there that just has marketers in it. And I'm like, I don't want to just talk to other marketers. I mean, yeah, there's professional, debate and stuff, but I need clients. I got a mortgage to pay. I have a travel addiction I got to feed.
Yeah.
I'm not here for fun.
Right.
So eventually my message has to hit someone that is, or could be, maybe someday, if you shift the wind, interested in my service.
Right.
Okay. And I feel like pods and like like real engagement pods is like a snake eating its tail. It's, I mean, we could sit there and all day on this chat and tell each other how awesome we are all day. And then we
Mm-hmm.
can come back tomorrow and do it again. But what is that? I mean, eventually, after 2 or 3 days, we'll probably get tired of feeling so good about ourselves. We're just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, I want to feel like crap about myself for a few days first.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
said something really important there. So many times, whether it's networking groups, engagement pods, or who you're hanging out with, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
coach. I mean, if I hung out with other coaches all the time, my
Mm-hmm.
ideal client is an entrepreneur, a doctor, a dentist, an attorney who has intellectual property they want to get out into the world. They have a bigger message,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, if I hang out with other coaches all the time, how is that going to work?
It
And
doesn't.
I think so many times, networking groups, I remember one a long time ago that I was in that was
Mm-hmm.
full of service professionals. And at the time,
Yeah.
I was a health coach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there might have been 40 people in that group,
Mm-hmm.
attorneys, financial services people, accountant, all of these service providers.
Yeah.
Not one of them ever hired me. Not one of them understood the value of health coaching, being in shape, losing weight, doing all of the things that I used to preach about.
Yeah.
And they weren't comfortable enough asking their clients to hire me. So they weren't able to refer business to me. And I spent 2 years in that group, like scratching my head, like, what, why is my message falling flat? And it's
Mm-hmm.
because I was hanging out with people who did not understand the value of what I was doing or the value in reciprocity and introductions and referrals.
Yeah.
And when you hang out with people who do the same thing as you, and that can be really, really valuable at a high level in a mastermind group.
Yeah.
But if that's all you're hanging out with, how are you going to ever meet your clients?
Yeah. It's not a solid lead gen strategy. That's for sure.
No, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah. And
not.
like I was, I joined a couple of like local networking groups and I had a very
Mhm.
similar experience. Like, one of the groups is a very popular national group, they had local chapters, and they said, oh, well, we have a space for one person in digital marketing.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was like, well, I mean, I kind of can do and sometimes do digital marketing, but that's not really my shtick. My shtick is, getting the client set up 12 to 18 months down the road. They're good to go. I'm not really going to do a lot of hands-on running digital, but that's the only real option they had.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try for a handful of meetings. But I was kind of pushed into this little box to say, okay, this is Aaron. He offers digital marketing. So do I either say, okay, screw it, anybody that comes from this, I'll just have to do social media strategy for or whatever because I need clients at that
Yeah.
time, or do I take the time to say, well, actually, the group said that was the spot, but this is really what I do.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I would say my experience, 80 to 90% of the people in those groups were not there necessarily to network; they were there to get business.
Yeah.
So they would only open their ears and eyes when they were given their pitch at the group,
Yes.
and so it was like I would get up at these meetings were always early ass in the morning too. So
Yeah,
like
what is
seven
that?
o'clock in the morning, I'm
No 7:30 in the morning. Nonsense. Stop it. Stop.
yeah, I don't get it, but yeah, it was like I'm up this early in the freaking morning,
Mhm.
and then some of these networking groups, the costs of membership
Mhm.
is insane, and they frame it like, oh well, this whole group of 150 people referred $5 million in business last year, which
Mhm.
sounds impressive until you realize you have a handful of commercial real estate agents in there.
Yeah.
That's one or two transactions passed back and forth that they're basically putting the whole weight of the group on.
Yeah.
So I think with networking groups, I think you really have to find the right one, and I think that's the challenge there. Do you actually are going to network, do this to get leads, or are you just going to do it to, be a lead?
Yeah, I don't think any networking, no matter what level, I don't think you can do it to get. You have to be in the position to be the giver.
Hmm.
Um, and I look at it kind of differently when I think about people to interact with. Do they have
Hmm.
people? So if I'm going to provide value to a community or give a talk or have a referral partner, does that
Hmm.
person have people? And I mean that in kind of like three different ways. Do they have a list? Do they have an
Hmm.
established presence on social media? Doesn't have to be huge, but are they posting? Are their
Hmm.
profiles set up properly? And then how
Hmm.
are they currently attracting their clients? And if it
Hmm.
doesn't add up to me, then I kind of know that that person is not going to have extra people for me.
Yes.
And
And I think
the
that's that
go ahead.
I think like you said, that vibe, that kind of one person, a lot
Yeah.
of times that vibe will kind of go to a large population of that group, to where that, you know, and I'll be honest, I'm an introvert. Part of what I teach in college of personal branding is MBTI. So I know where my MBTI type is, and trust me, there's no part of my MBTI that says I'm cool with 7 a.m. roundtable networking meetings.
Yeah.
So I tend to be maybe I don't want to say a little extra, not extra critical of them, but I do take them with kind of a, definitely a critical eye to,
Yeah.
because also too, especially now in my life, this kind of this post mother-in-law, rebirth thing. I guess for lack of a better term, I don't have nearly the capacity for bullshit.
Oh, isn't that the
You
truth?
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think after
It's
you
that's
go
like
through something like that, how long did you take off from work completely?
it took well, I it took we cared for her for a year, and then she passed, and probably I took about another 4 months to kind of get my head, like, I'm like, okay, I'm at a point where I can focus on my work. I'm
Yeah.
interested in my work again. um and honestly, I'm not completely full of, through the grieving process, but luckily my wife and I we were smart enough in hindsight that when this started coming, and we brought my mother-in-law home, we're like, this is going to happen. So we
Mhm.
both got into grief counseling right off the bat.
Nice.
And we started really, really kind of taking a look at, how are we processing this? How are we being better to
Mhm.
ourselves and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And really, the kind of just the big gist of it is yeah, your capacity for just the bullshit, it goes down to nearly nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so I really like, especially like when I teach college and my students, um, I deploy kind candor, but I'm a lot more direct with my students.
Mhm.
Like before, like a student would come to me, hey, can I get an extension on this? I'm kind of behind, and before I'd be like, yeah, whatever, we'll see what happens. And a lot of times a student would fail on that or whatever. But now I'm like, okay, let's look at this whole picture. Have we solved the problem that caused this yet, or are we just creating more problems and perpetuating this down the road by me giving you extensions? And that same thing kind of goes in the professional world and the LinkedIn world is, you know, when I look to reply to something, I go, okay, can I reply and add something, like the one of the three? Okay, can I do
Mhm.
that well and while still being kind?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a different lens than before, where I was just, let me support, let me raise up, that kind of thing. To where now I realize, I want to get my work done so I can go enjoy my life, so I can go hang out with my wife, so I can go scuba diving, whatever.
Yeah.
So definitely the hustle grind culture, that desire kind of goes away. when you have something like this happen in your life, you kind of have to rebuild yourself a little bit. But yeah, I
Agreed.
definitely the capacity for the BS is like there.
Well, with everything we've talked about today, I'm
Hmm.
wondering what's really working right now in your mind on LinkedIn
Hmm.
as a content creator. What does it look like? Um, and if you could drop a couple tips for our listeners, that would be awesome.
Um, don't be authentic. Be your real self. I mean, maybe most people aren't comfortable sharing things like I am. Okay, but to me, the sharing is a lot of the healing part. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe people are very private people. Okay, but you can be a private person and still be authentic. You
yeah,
can still be very real. And I
yeah.
think a lot of times people they the I spent several years in the corporate world back in my 20s before I realized it just wasn't for me. And I think the reason why was you just have so much of that surface level, how's the weather, water cooler talk,
Yeah.
okay, where people don't really learn because all business, everything is transactional as people. Okay. You have to understand people. Someone with great communication skills and great people skills and a solid level of empathy, in my opinion, can write their own ticket in most any professions, aside from the
Yeah.
ones that require advanced training. Okay,
Yeah.
but really, because one, I don't care how high performing you are, no one wants to work with an asshole.
Right.
You know, and but you want to, and life happens. We're all going through things in life. Okay, so and maybe this comes from kind of a place for me of I have I learned a term about 6 months ago called empathy burnout.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that term at all or anything like
Yeah.
that, but we've all come through COVID. It's like show grace, be
Mhm.
empathetic, show grace, But see, a lot of times, when you're showing that empathy, you forget to show yourself empathy.
Oh, so true.
Okay. So at the end of the day, you're like, why am I so anxious? Why am I stressed out? Why is my heart pounding all the time? And it's
Yeah.
because you're giving and giving and giving, but you're not worried. You're not caring for yourself. You're not feeding the child inside that needs to hear great posts. I appreciate you. Yeah, you're right. I support your post or any of the other 100,000 AI generated comments.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of where I'm at is I am an empath. I do feel others' pain a lot, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I have to protect myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So if something's not worth my time or something I see could be toxic or something like that, I I don't wait for all the red flags to pile up anymore.
Yeah. I like that.
I show myself empathy. I show myself empathy because you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's one thing I learned as being a caretaker, because being a caretaker, especially for someone with dementia, will
Mhm.
rip you down to your core. It will take
Yeah.
you down to your bare studs and to where you're like, who are you when no one is cheering for you?
Mhm.
And then you realize that at the end of the day, you have to love and cheer for yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the past several years, the whole gist of the world is, everybody's got problems, show all the empathy to others, but no one ever says, you know what, love yourself, care for yourself first.
Well,
Put your own oxygen mask on first.
that's part of authenticity to me
Mm-hmm.
is honoring that I don't start work till 10 o'clock. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that morning is for me. That's my deep work time. That's my exercise time. That's my, I do have some family time in there too. And then
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fridays, I'm done at 3 o'clock. I don't want anything on my calendar after 3 o'clock. And as the summer comes, it's going to be 1 o'clock. And that's how I take care of me. I don't, I think authenticity is about being real. Yes, I'm very transparent about my business journeys, my partnerships, like things that I go through. But there's certain things I don't talk about on social media. It's none of anybody else's business, right? And I
Absolutely not.
think
Yeah.
there's a way to be authentic, to be in touch with yourself, to know yourself, to give to
Mm-hmm.
others while still taking care of yourself, keeping some
Mm-hmm.
things private. And my mentor said something to me, and I think you'll like this. She said, be approachable, but not accessible. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, as I grew in popularity and more people wanted a piece of STK, they wanted time with me, or they wanted to be able to text me, or, oh, let's have a weekly call. No, that's for clients. Like, as more and more people wanted a piece of me, I still
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be warm and friendly and authentic,
Mm-hmm.
but there had to be a separation, approachable, but you can't just
Mm-hmm.
get on my calendar for free. This is a business over here, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it was like she gave me permission to still be myself, but yet put some sort of boundary in place, not only on the calendar, but of your
Mm-hmm.
time, because that's your most valuable asset as a business owner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's like, you talk about time, like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things I'm kind of wrestling with coming back into my profession is, how do I, how am I accessible or available to my clients without burning myself out?
Yeah.
And I started by setting very like I still have an open calendar. You can go on there and book a 15-minute meeting, but the slots are only going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday between 10 and 2.
Nice.
Okay. If you want me anytime outside of my established office hours, you kind of going back to
Mhm.
the professor thing, office hours,
Yeah, I
then
love that.
there needs to be an amazing reason. Okay, because maybe if you can't get me on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 to 2 this week, catch me next week. But send me a message if you think it's way more important, and I'll decide if it is or not.
Right.
But it's definitely going to be a big lift to get me outside of those times on just an intro call.
Yeah, I love that because I had a meeting a couple weeks ago with a very brand new person who was
Mm-hmm,
introduced
mm-hmm,
to me, and that's the only way to get on my free 15-minute call is if one of my
mm-hmm,
valued connections introduces us. And typically it's for a client, like, oh, you should talk to Sue, she
mm-hmm,
could probably solve your problem, and if she's not the
mm-hmm.
person, she'll refer you to who is. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I met someone new that way, and right away he wanted to introduce me to like 8 people. And I was like, "Whoa. I don't have time for all that." And he said, "What do you
Yeah.
mean?" I said, I have 3 get to know you calls on my calendar a week that, my referral partners, that's for them to, refer me clients or whatever. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
if you introduce me to 8 random people who you just think I should have a conversation with, I said, my calendar is going to be full. There'll be
Right.
no room for prospects. And, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Uh, if you
Yeah.
think one of those people could be a client for me or a member of my
Mm-hmm.
group, then yes, absolutely. But just cold people, to me, I stopped doing
Yeah.
that a long time ago.
I think you bring up an amazing point with that is, especially like, at my point in my life, and you kind of hit a certain age where you just kind of understand where you need to be. And
Yes.
especially when
Yes.
you run a small business, you go, okay, this is the type and number of clients I want to take on, because
Mhm.
this is what's going to effectively pay my bills, and I really don't feel like doing any more. You know,
Yeah.
so you're very tight with your time, and you go, okay, I could take on this many clients, this many consult clients, this many marketing clients, yada. But aside from that, I refer it out because
Mhm.
the hustle years I think are really way behind me. I have no interest in
Yeah.
doing the whole bro hustle porn thing.
Same.
I did that for years. But give me a handful of clients that I work very well with, that I can be very effective with,
Yeah.
and I'm good. The rest of it is I'm going to protect my time.
Yeah.
And
Same.
however that
I love
however that looks. Yeah, and however that looks different to every person. So I can't sit there and be like, Sue, this is exactly how you need to protect your time, step, step, and step, and step. And because that's not going to work for you.
right.
We both have different lifestyles, different obligations outside of our work. So, and that's kind of one of the jokes I make in my personal brand, is outsmarting the gurus, is because a lot of the gurus out there say my way is the way. You're going to do this, only this, and you'll be successful. 9 times out of 10, they're probably not successful because one method does not work for that person, and that.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like kind of taking this a little kind of maybe off the side here. I feel like a lot of times, especially on LinkedIn, we spend so much time trying to put each other in boxes.
Mm.
Okay, how many posts do you see a day, Sue? You should post this way on LinkedIn because it's effective. You shouldn't post this way on
God,
LinkedIn. If you want to be
I know.
successful on LinkedIn, do it this way. And
Mm.
it's almost to the point where by 9 in the morning, I'm fucking nauseated. Sorry for the
Yeah.
F-bomb.
No, it's
But
uh,
because it's like all the same, and
yeah.
then they keep talking. They're all the gurus like, oh, niche down, niche down, niche down, and it's like, what if I want to offer a couple lines of service? You know what? I offer LinkedIn consulting for professional solopreneurs and executives that want to build their LinkedIn presence, and I offer marketing consulting for small businesses and solopreneurs. That's two offerings there.
Yeah.
Are the LinkedIn police going to come and arrest me? you
Yeah.
know? So
Well,
I feel like
I have
LinkedIn.
two very distinct ideal clients. And, one is for my membership and
Mm-hmm,
the other is to work with me one on one. They could be the same person.
mm-hmm,
One of my
exactly.
membership people could turn into one of my one on one clients.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
when I think about how many times I was told, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that.
mm-hmm,
No, and
mm-hmm,
I think what you're talking about putting into, a framework or a box or, I think that's why I'm so passionate about coaching in general, consulting in general, because
mm-hmm,
it's for you. It's not about
mm-hmm,
my modules or my framework or you you trust me, you trust that I have
mm-hmm,
the experience in the real world, and we're going to do what your business needs, not what I want you
mm-hmm.
to do, because it's not about me.
Yeah.
And I just think I love that you said that because it's really, really important to understand when you're in the marketplace choosing someone to work with,
Mm-hmm,
that you understand that it's about you and your business when you hire somebody, not
mm-hmm.
how they want you to do things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, yeah, it's just people just. I feel like if it's your business and you want because you have to ultimately run it and live in it.
Right.
And if you're not cool in your own skin, then life's gonna suck. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, you know, I have, yeah, I like you, I have two different offerings. A lot of times they mesh together in some way, but I have two separate offerings. I'm running completely contrary to what the gurus say. And I mean, I'm circling 20,000 followers probably the next month or two. I don't think I'm doing horribly there. I think I've
Yeah.
found my tribe. I'm found my tribe, and I'm continuing to build my tribe because if you could have 10 offerings, but if you convey your message right, connect with good people, be authentic, your tribe is going to follow you wherever you go.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of people on LinkedIn in the cannabis industry that still cheer me on. I have a huge cheering section of people that work in the weed industry, and
I
I love
love
it.
that. I
Okay,
love that.
because I mean, honestly, the cannabis industry is not the place for me right now. But I had a great amount of, I loved it in the cannabis industry. I had a blast in it, and I met some of the most supportive people out there. Even though they're totally not in my ICP,
Yeah.
guess what? They're supporting me still.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to, you know, I think the niche down thing maybe works when you're first starting out. You have to have that really, really fine focus, but once you get to a certain point where you're actually getting in clients and you want to do something else, like
Yeah.
I just launched another line of service, mainly my LinkedIn consulting, but you know, I'm direct, because I do work, my wife is also a professor. I do work in education. Is the job market that a lot of these high school and college students coming into is horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
So what better place, the parent, go to the parent, hey, don't get your kid a stupid tie for graduation. Get them a set of LinkedIn consulting sessions. Let them build their online presence. Let them build their personal brand and start building relationships with key decision makers while they're going through college. So that way,
Yeah.
4 years later, they have a hell of a network, a hell of a following, and they can basically write their own ticket.
I love that. I
You
love
know,
that. And shout out to Maximus. Sure, I'm going to send him this episode and have him connect with you. He is a college senior. I was introduced to him by his dad, and he's in the AI space, and he's doing an internship, and he is starting his LinkedIn profile. And I said, whatever I can do to support
yeah,
you, that is such a great message to do it before you finish college, to establish
yeah, and
some key connections in a couple different industries. Really smart.
well, I think it goes for it goes a long way. Also, too, is instead, you know, if you go through LinkedIn through college, if you're on LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn all through college, and again,
Mhm.
you only got to be 16 to start a LinkedIn account. You can start one as a junior in high school, but
Yeah.
imagine if you built your LinkedIn throughout late high school and all through college, you're posting your trials, your tribulations. Oh my God, this class sucked and this is why, but this is how I overcame it. Guess what? You have 5 years of case studies and track record that
Yeah.
any employer is going to go through and say, you know what? This person, maybe they're a little wild in their freshman year. I had a little funny story about them getting arrested for drunk in public, but look at how they progress through college. Oh my God, we have to hire them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
think a lot of
love
it comes down to, yeah, you just knowing people. And when you apply for that job, you're not the unknown.
yes. Yes. I love to
So,
share a story about a doctor who um and his name is slipping my mind right now, but he was recording YouTube videos all about med school, being a resident, and productivity, how he got stuff done, how he got studying done and still worked a full-time job. And his YouTube channel, when he finally became a full-fledged doctor, his YouTube channel
mhm.
was making him more money than his doctor salary. Now, wait, I'll tell you his name. Hold on. I have his book, and Feel Good Productivity. Ali Abdal is his name. Ali Abdal. And so he
Okay.
writes this book, Feel Good Productivity,
Hmm.
and he left being a doctor to travel the world and write about
Hmm.
productivity. And his life satisfaction went through the roof. He is working so much less, 2 or 3 hours a day writing. And it
Yeah.
was such a
Yeah.
powerful message about establishing your personal brand that it really stuck with me, because he had no intention of becoming a productivity expert and speaker and author when he
Hmm.
was in college, but he just started documenting his journey. and being open to where it led. Great message.
Yeah, I think yeah, and that's a story that's actually not too uncommon.
Yeah.
Because people love a good story. They love a good hero story, comeback story, whatever.
Yeah.
And like with when I going back to my mother-in-law and how I kind of was very very open with that on LinkedIn. That actually
Mm-hmm.
started because I was like, I'm gonna shut down my LinkedIn. I just got to focus on this.
Yeah.
But I started having a lot of people from my network messaging me saying, "Hey, how's everything going? Are you cool?" It was, like genuine messages of support. And I go, you know what? I have a lot of people that care about me, that want to know what I'm going through and just get an
Yeah.
update. So I started posting updates. And that now is part of my brand story.
Yeah.
Everything trial and tribulation you go through is going to be part of your brand story. And it's up to you and how you craft your personal brand, how you want to share that, how much you want to share. But I feel like once people feel like they know you, they know the person behind a
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn profile picture. They're all. I mean,
Yeah.
some of these are just great. Like, I mean, mine heck is
Yeah.
a cartoon. But I think actually that you're talking about AI images. I think like that really came out dope. So I'm gonna use that for my profile
Yeah.
picture. But like LinkedIn, if you just look at someone's LinkedIn profile, a lot, the way they're laid out functionally is kind of sterile.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, I almost wish we could go take LinkedIn back to like 2003 MySpace. I mean, I
Yeah.
swear we were all coding HTML like we were hackers,
We
man. It
were.
was great.
We were. We were.
But
Oh, this has been so awesome. Aaron, how can our listeners get in touch with you besides your LinkedIn profile?
find me on LinkedIn. My website is Weese.consulting. I actually got one of those .consulting domain names.
Nice.
Um, I was actually trying to buy an .ai domain name. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've looked, but those are insanely expensive, like $200 a year on GoDaddy right now.
Wow.
But yeah, Weese.consulting. If you want to email me, it's Aaron@Weese.consulting.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to chat, hit me up.
Well, thanks so much for today. And an hour flew by so quickly.
It did. It
Thanks for
did.
being willing to have a totally cold conversation, and appreciate the new connection.
Awesome. I appreciate you, Sue.
Have a great day, everyone. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend.